great room. Thank you all for being here. So thrilling. We hadn't met lately. I hadn't met lately, so we're thrilled you're here. Barbara's been amazing. I have to say, when we decided to do this, all the classic things happen when women stick their necks out, which I was shocked about because I grew up with the most amazing, powerful feminist mother you could possibly have, and a father who supported her every step of the way. It never occurred to me in my naivete when I was Raven's age, for instance, that the world wasn't waiting for fabulous women. I mean, it literally did not occur to me. And it was so shocking to me later in my career to realize that that was in fact the case. And when you actually say to a group of people, like Ellen and I did, in quite respectful tones, excuse me, but we would like to be at the table, we literally got slapped, like slapped on the wrist, like bad girls. Why don't you behave? Which of course made us want to not behave. But it was really eye-opening to me because I thought, in fact, we are the lucky ones. You know, Ellen and I, for a variety of reasons, landed in these jobs and have been blessed to lead. This is one of the great organizations, you know, in my experience, anywhere that you're sitting in. And so it's a gift, and it's really, it's an important place to sit because we are a storytelling industry, right? So obviously gender equity in the world is something that we are all fighting for. It's particularly peculiar to have such a disparity in a profession which is about the imagination and which is about storytelling. So somebody gets to decide whose stories get to be told, right? And those gatekeepers are very important because the audience needs to experience the plethora of stories which represent the human experience. So tonight, those of you who are here are going to see The Orphan of Zhao, which is a Chinese epic. It's an extraordinary, one of the great non-Western classics. And guess what? It's never been produced in the American theater, where we mostly do Western classics. But, you know, we live in a city that's 42% Asian American. This is a great gift to be doing this story. Someone has to decide that story is going to get told at this theater. And because there's so few women leaders, it is not a coincidence that women's stories get told so much less often. And when they do get told, they are considered women's stories. They're considered marginal, even though most of the people buying the tickets are female. So who sits at the table is really important. This isn't just an academic exercise. Because that's where the choices are made. And why is storytelling important? Because as citizens, we need to reimagine our world, right? We are in such a divided, fractious position in the world today. And to me, the extraordinary thing about theater is that when you actually experience a play, instead of reading an essay, but you experience somebody's life point of view live, instead of intellectualizing it, you actually emotionally understand how somebody other than you feels. In many circumstances, and you walk out of the theater different from how you came in. So that's a great gift. One of the things we do at A.C.T. is we're very, very deeply involved in education because that trigger can start very young. And children who have arts education experiences turn out to be much more engaged citizens, much less likely to drop out of school, much more focused in every possible way. Arts education, even a tiny drop of arts education, has a profound impact on students, and yet it's the first thing to get cut. It's always considered a luxury. We are living in a city where most children in public schools have no access to the arts. So this is a deep dive that A.C.T. has taken over the years. We have a continuation high school, which is part of A.C.T. Eunice Nuvala has been the teacher of that program for 2 years. Remarkable teacher. Raven came out of that program and has now been working with us at A.C.T. Josie's an MFA student at A.C.T. and she's been working this summer at Oasis for Girls. The beginning of this question about access and equity starts young, and it's always been embedded in the heartbeat of A.C.T. because we are a teaching institution. Now we're realizing it has to happen at every level of the institution, and that you have to model it from above, and you have to leave the doors open at every level of access. We're starting a program next year called Stagecoach, which is a mobile unit that's going to go to underserved neighborhoods in San Francisco to bring theater to all kinds of people who have not experienced it and don't actually realize that it's something that could give voice to their own stories. We do a lot of San Francisco story projects here to access people's stories. We're about to open a new theater, finally a second stage at A.C.T. in an old porn theater mid-market called The Strand. And one of the first projects is a beautiful Filipino project because that's a very heavily Filipino neighborhood. So that's the joy, right, of making theater. And I think because, you know, Ellen and I sort of thought it was a coincidence that we ended up here, right? And that we were the lucky ones. And the very first time I talked to Sumru, she sat down with me and said, well, how did you get this job? Like, why did they hire you? Which was sort of ridiculous. I was 32, I had a 3-year-old, I had only run a theater under $1 million. This is a $20 million organization. I'd never really worked in the Lord Theater. It was really unlikely. And one reason I know is that there were so many great women on the board. That was not a coincidence. I hadn't thought about it at the time. I just thought it's a great board. But those women took a flyer on me. And, you know, that terrifying statistic that men get hired on their potential and women get hired on their resumes is something I've carried with me all my life. You have to take a gamble on a woman because women have had much less access to those things that build the kind of resumes that boards usually look at. And this board took that leap. So I can't wait to see where this research leads. And I just want to say this, from where we sit in the theater, we are very impatient and we want answers tomorrow. But what I've learned from Sumru and Layli and Barbara and the women at Wellesley is that this field deserves this kind of rigor. It deserves this kind of rigorous research so that instead of coming up with a quick solution and saying more mentors, more childcare, different boards, hire new search firms, all of which may be true, we first really want to know. And that knowing takes a long time and is being done by brilliant and really sophisticated women who know how to do this, which is not our field. You know, we're not sociologists. So we have to take a deep breath and watch as this collection happens, and then we will all be part of watching how the analysis plays out. And as that analysis plays out, action steps will evolve from that. So it is worth that investment. It's a deep investment, it's a long-term investment, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but this is the kind of research that will make a profound difference. So you're the network, because you're here. You must be interested in this or you wouldn't have turned up, except for the food, which is also worth coming for. So we would, love you to spread the word. We would love you to introduce this project to other people who might be excited about it. We would love you to help to contribute to it and help support the work so that the analysis, not just the data collection, but the next step of work can happen. And you will look back in 20 years when Josie's off there having an incredible acting career and Raven is off running theaters and doing whatever she's doing, and know that the next generation of women, right, has been blessed by this matriarchy of people here who are really out there to support it. So thank you for coming and keep the charge going.